All right, let's just jump right in. What if I told you there's a theory out there that about 300 years of the Middle Ages just never happened? It sounds wild, I know. But today we're digging into a really fascinating paper that uses the unchangeable laws of physics to actually audit our history books. So, this is the big, provocative question at the heart of it all. The central idea is that nearly 300 years of the early Middle Ages might be what some call phantom time. Essentially fabricated. Now, that is a massive claim, right? So, how on earth could you even begin to test something like that? This is the official name for it, the phantom time hypothesis. And it zeroes in on a very specific window, AD 614 to 911. Now, the paper we're looking at treats this not as some conspiracy to be believed or debunked, but as a scientific problem, something that you can actually test with data. So, how do you fact-check history itself? I mean, if you can't trust the books, what can you trust? Well, you need a clock that can't be tampered with, a ruler that never ever changes. So you look up. You look to the predictable mechanical perfection of the stars. And this, right here, is the core principle of this whole analysis. Think about it. Human records, chronicles, annals, all those histories, they can be copied incorrectly, they can be lost in fires, they can even be deliberately altered. But the orbits of planets and moons? Nope. They follow the laws of physics perfectly and predictably time after time. So you've got this contrast, right? On one side, you have the messiness of human records, and on the other, you have the absolute rock-solid consistency of celestial mechanics. So this paper uses these unchangeable astronomical events as a kind of gold standard to audit our written history. The investigation uses two very specific tools from its cosmic toolkit. First up, you've got eclipses. A total solar eclipse is only visible from a teeny tiny path on Earth, which makes it an amazing geographical and temporal pinpoint. And second, the great conjunctions of Saturn and Jupiter. They happen roughly every 20 years, and they give us a really nice long-term check for measuring time over centuries. Okay, so how does the paper actually stress test the historical records? Well, it builds a hypothetical framework for the analysis, which it calls Model A. Let's break down exactly how this thing works. At the absolute heart of this Model A stress test is this number, minus 297 years. Now, this isn't just random. It's the exact amount of phantom time that the hypothesis claims might be missing from the record. Now, this is super, super important. The paper does not just subtract 297 years from everything. That's not what's happening. It's a diagnostic tool. It's only applied if, and only if, a historical account of some astronomical event doesn't match our standard calendar in the first place. Okay, let's walk through an example so this makes sense. Step 1. Imagine a medieval text says there was a total solar eclipse over, say, Constantinople on a specific date. So step 2, we check NASA's data for that date, and we find the path of totality was actually hundreds of miles away. The record fails. So we apply the stress test, that's step 3, and we subtract 297 years. Then we recalculate the eclipse path for this new, earlier date, and if, and only if, it now passes directly over Constantinople, that's step 4, the record gets flagged as a Model A match. So the methodology seems pretty sound, right? But what actually happened when the authors applied this forensic audit to the real historical records from that specific period we're looking at? Well, the results were not quite what you might expect. Okay, so what's really fascinating here is that the results are not a simple yes or no. It's a total mixed bag. Some records, like one from the Chinese court, match our standard Gregorian calendar perfectly. No changes needed, everything's fine. But others, like a Byzantine record, only make physical sense if you apply that 297-year shift. And then you have some records, like a Carolingian one, that just don't match either calendar. They're just rejected as unreliable. And this wasn't just a fluke with the eclipse data. When they ran the same kind of test on records of Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions, they found the exact same mixed pattern. Now, getting this independent confirmation from a completely different set of astronomical events, that's a really significant finding. So this chart gives us a great visual summary of what's going on. The historical record isn't uniformly right, and it's not uniformly wrong. Instead, it really does seem to be a patchwork. Some pieces align perfectly with our current calendar, some seem to be shifted by this 297-year period, and others, well, they're just inconsistent no matter how you look at them. This quote from the paper just nails the conclusion perfectly. The goal wasn't to rewrite history. The goal was to create a tool, a diagnostic instrument, a way to see where historical accounts seem to strain or bend when you put them under pressure from the hard, unchangeable laws of physics. Let's just say that again, because it really is the main takeaway here. This is all about identifying anomalies. It's about finding those specific points in the historical record where what was written down just doesn't seem to line up with what we know must have been happening in the sky at that time. Now, the paper takes a bit of a left turn at the very end. It introduces another concept, and it's really, really careful to point out that this is a completely separate idea from the historical audit we've just been talking about. This is called the Antediluvian Sovereign Calendar, or ASC for short, and it's a proposal for a brand new calendar system. The idea is basically 13 identical months of 28 days each. That adds up to 364 days. Then it would use 1 or 2 special boundary days that exist outside of the months to perfectly sync everything up with the solar year. And here is the absolute key thing to understand. The proposal for this new calendar system has nothing to do with the historical analysis we just went through. Model A is a backward-looking diagnostic tool. The ASC is a forward-looking proposal for a new way to track time. They are 2 totally separate projects within the same paper. And to put a final point on the whole thing, the author offers this really powerful clarification about the goal of the work. They say this is chronological forensics, not ideology. The whole idea is just to follow the physical evidence wherever it leads, not to push a particular belief system. And, this leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. This paper basically presents a method for using the predictable clockwork of the cosmos to audit our own recorded past. And it really makes you wonder, if we can apply this kind of rigorous physics-based testing to one period of history, what other assumptions, what other stories or timelines are out there just waiting to be put to the test?